Roughly how many times do you think they pass the basketball? 16, 17? Okay, for those of you who've not seen this before, did you notice anything else? One or two of you noticed something a bit unusual. Anyone not notice anything unusual? Did anyone not notice the gorilla? I certainly didn't see it when I first saw it. You can be honest. Okay, a few of you are putting your hands up. You didn't see the gorilla. I'm just going to play this again. And if you look from here in a few seconds, here it comes. I promise you I didn't see this when I first saw this. It's an example of what we call inattentive blindness. I gave you a task to do, and your mind was focused on that task, and you were processing the information that you were seeing, processing it with your cortex, the rational part of our brain, and we can completely miss some quite important information. I've just got a little bit, it's a bit of fun, so I've just got one more example here.
Here's our little dragon, sitting on the window ledge. But look what happens the minute we move. His head twists and turns to follow us as we move around the room. It's all an illusion, of course. He's not really moving at all. It's a version of the hollow face illusion, but it's a very powerful effect. And not just side to side. If we move up and down, again his head cranes to follow us. But our brain has made an assumption about the structure of the dragon's head. And if we move far enough around to the side, we suddenly realize the structure is different.
So there we go, just another example. When I started the company Brand Sense, I started the Aroma Co. about 25 years ago. About 10 years ago, I wanted to extend what I did into multiple senses. And I was working with a guy called Martin Lindstrom, and we did some really interesting research to look at how, as consumers, we relate to brands around us. And we found that actually, we found that as human beings, we're quite balanced about how we use the senses in our relationship with brands. You can see that, yes, primarily we are visual beings, but look how important smell and sound and touch are, and taste. And yet when we asked top brands how they spent their marketing and branding budgets, you can see there was a huge over-reliance on visual communication. 84% of all brand expenditure appeals to the eyes alone. And you can see that graphically. So the blue chart is relative consumer importance and the green is marketing spend. So what I do is I inhabit these red boxes, helping brands to engage with human beings across multiple senses in ways that they don't do at the moment. Why is this important? Well, we've already seen that sight is processed by the rational part of our brain, whereas other senses, like smell in particular, has a direct connection to the emotional center of our brain called the limbic system. When we smell something, we get an immediate emotional and memorable response. Psychologists talk about the limbic system controlling the 4 Fs, which, if you'll forgive me, stands for fight, flight or running away, food, and human reproduction. It's those basic instinctual behaviors that the sense of smell controls. And so when we look at our relationship with brands and the things that we love and we want to buy, it's my contention, if we look at 2 different axes, from rational to emotional purchase decisions, through things that we're not even thinking about, whereas things that we're consciously processing, most of our purchase decision, most of our relationship with brands happens down here. It's emotional, and we don't even think about it. And I'll give you a quick example of that. Here are 4 executive car brands. And on the left are all the rational reasons that you might buy one of those 4 different cars. And I'd ask any one of you if you could make that choice about which car you would buy. It's pretty difficult, isn't it? You can't really decide. But what if I do this? suddenly all the emotionality that are associated with each of those different brands make that choice much, much easier. I know which I'd buy, and I probably know which I wouldn't. I'm not going to tell you. So this is what I do. I help brands create emotions and then drive them through sensory experiences. And there's another little way of thinking about this. I'd like you now to imagine that you're all single. You might have to go back quite a while. For me, it's not that long ago. But imagine that you're single and that you're at a party. And imagine you're going into that party as a single person. What are you going to do? You're going to be looking around the room to see who's attractive. And maybe you see someone who's attractive, you had a glass of wine, you might walk up to them and start talking to them. And you're using your ears now, and we're going through what kind of a screening process. Is this person interesting or not? Do we like them? Do they like us? Let's assume that the evening is going quite well, and we're getting on quite well together. And then the music comes on and the lights go down. We maybe touch them. We put our arms around them. We hold our hand. We go onto the dance floor. We get up close and personal now. And now we're smelling their wonderful fragrance or their own individual fragrance or scent. And if the evening's gone really well, at the end of the evening, we might get to taste them. And I'm talking a kiss here. And so that human relationship is going beyond visual into much more deeper personal senses. And it's driving what I call brand intimacy or human intimacy. And as it is with our relationship with one another and human beings, I think it's vital that as brands we get beyond visual and we get into these more emotional and deeper and intimate senses. So for intimacy, you could be talking brand loyalty, I suppose. So my job as a branding consultant is to populate that journey towards intimacy with sensory brand attributes that brand can own. Not just visual, colour or iconography, but through into signature brand fragrances, signature sound. I'm going to be showing you a couple of examples of how I do that in a minute. Why is this important? Well, research that I've done for various brands using fMRI brain scanning prove that when we add senses, we don't add emotions in a linear way. We actually start to multiply that emotional impact, what psychologists call superadditivity. So with senses, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3 or 4. We can multiply that emotional connection. I can tell you, if anyone wants to ask me about McDonald's and the research we did for McDonald's, come and chat to me afterwards that proves this hypothesis. Since we're talking about the print industry, I also wanted to talk to you about why paper is special beyond just digital communications. Everyone's rushing to digital communications. I believe to a certain extent that's wrong. It's interesting to see that Kindle sales are dropping and books and CDs are coming back. I think you alluded to the fact of the sort of nostalgia of tangible media, but actually it's more important than that. We did some research for the UK Postal Service, and we got 2 pieces of communication, one on a digital screen and one on a piece of paper, and we put respondents into a brain scanner and we watched what happened in their brains when they were presented with this information on a digital screen or a piece of paper. And what we found was this, that on the piece of paper, because that information has a sense of place, far more, it's called proprioception, a sense of place relative to our bodies. Far more emotion was created, far more memory was created. It was much easier for the people to remember and to process that information. It made it more real. And surely, therefore, this should impact on our choice of media, not just digital, but on paper too, and print. Paper's special. It's more real for the brain and more emotions are involved. And when we look at this from the point of view of the cost of media, this becomes really interesting. Because physical printed media, particularly at where I work mostly, which is point of sale, is much, much cheaper than digital media. So over here, this is the cost per 1,000 of opportunities to see for scented point of sale. Compared with the cost of digital media, it's about 50 times cheaper in terms of cost of 1,000 opportunities to see. But we've already seen that when we're using multiple senses, so with scented point of sale, it's touch, it's vision, and it's fragrance, this impact becomes multiplied. So if you do some simple sums, it's almost like 300 times more efficient as a media than digital alone. And these are the sort of typical results that we get with scented point of sale. Brand switch, that brand loyalty or intimacy, drives sales, it drives brand loyalty, it drives interaction, and drives engagement. So you've seen why I believe the senses are important. I'm just going to very quickly, to finish for the last 5 minutes, show you a few examples of the sort of thing that we do. Starting with a hotel group in London, where we've created both a signature brand fragrance for them, which is in every lobby, but also guests can actually choose fragrances in their room. They have a choice of a palette of 6 fragrances when they register and they log on to their room. They can choose which fragrance their room would be scented with, and we have the little devices that are in the room gently, very subtly diffusing that chosen fragrance into the bedroom. That's become so successful they're putting it into every Montcalm hotel now. We've done some work recently, a Christmas promotion with Waitrose, which was really interesting. They created their own unique Waitrose Christmas fragrance, and they not only put it into personal care products, but also into home care products, even some of the food products. And they wanted to communicate this, so we did things like scented shelf cards, tear-off pads, and we diffused it into the air in the stores as well. We've created signature brand fragrance for Italian cruise lines. Well, the fragrance is designed to represent what that brand is about, but also this traditional Italian hospitality. And that's very gently, subtly diffused into the public spaces, but also applied to the laundry, and it's even put into the toiletries in the rooms and on their brochures. So it's printed onto their brochures so that when it's sent out each summer, that fragrance reminds you of your wonderful holiday that you had last summer, and when you come to book, you can't possibly book with any other cruise line. We created a fragranced booklet for York, the city of York. Every page has a different fragrance related to the experiences that you might have when you go to that city. That became hugely covered by the global press, and the York as a city became hugely talked about in social media. But it was so popular that we had to reprint that booklet, because now tourists buy that booklet for about £2 every time they visit. So scented booklet. This is the typical sort of point of sale promotion that we do for brands such as personal care, where you can sample the smell of the brand, engage consumers with multiple senses before they buy, increasing sales. For personal care products, the same sort of thing. But I wanted to finish by talking about one of the projects I've enjoyed the most. Has anyone here been to Colombia? Colombia is a wonderful country. The people are really, really happy. Apparently, the United Nations measure national happiness, and the Colombians always come out on top. But we were working for a bank, and banking in South America, in Colombia in particular, is all very much the same. But they had a new chief executive, and she was a woman, very visionary, and wanted to completely change banking in South America. And so we worked with her, we did some work to define her brand values. And she came up with 5 new brand values, which were passionate, funny, witty, courageous, intelligent, and innovative. So already pretty different for a bank, I'm sure you'd agree. And we did a workshop. So what we did is we got sensory specialists, myself on fragrance, I'm a fragrance specialist. We got specialists on sound and taste and touch and visual design. And we got lots of people from the bank, right from the chief executive and finance director, right down to some of the branch cleaning people, because they act as the eyes and ears of the business. And we interpreted each of those 5 values, passion, courage, wit, intelligence, and innovation, across each of the 5 senses. So what is the smell of passion for the bank? What's the smell of courage for the bank? What's the smell of taste of intelligence? And we came up with what we call a sensory expression set. And that was then collected into what we called a brand in a box. And that became the briefing tool that went to the bank designers, the architects and the visual designers of that new bank. And in a minute, what I'll do is I'll play for you a video that talks through the experience of going into that bank. So we created sounds and smells and visions, which I'll play for you now. I'll play for you now. So this is a brand suite of music that was created to express what the brand was all about. Embedded in that brand suite, can the level go up a little bit, please, is the sonic logo, which you'll hear in a minute, and it's a very human whistle. This is how the bank used to look before, and this is how it looks and feels now. So bright pastel colours. This is sound that's played in the in the high value, high net worth customer areas. It's slightly below the resting human heart rate. It relaxes you because it's below your heart rate. And this is for the high net worth customers where they want them to spend more and spend more time. There are areas that are non-customers where they just have to do bank processing. It's slightly more harmonic tension above the human heart rate. People tend to move through faster, right? You can hear there's no harmonic resolution here. We created soundscapes that were part of the nature. They wanted to bring part of the Colombian jungle into the city in Bogota in this particular branch. So using sound as a means to design the space. We created a signature brand fragrance which expressed those values of passion, courage, wit, innovation and intelligence. That was very subtly diffused into the air, but also put into the textiles, printed into the textiles, put into the hand soaps in the washrooms. We discovered through voice, the voice of the brand was Eva Longoria, and we decided that this was going to be the world's first female bank. So lots of soft shapes, soft textures, soft colours. We created a signature flavour that was linked to the fragrance, same fragrance notes, and that was put into bottled water and sweets. I'll just walk you through the video of the branch now. That's the flavoured bottled water with the signature flavour. And the sonic brand beacon there. That whistle is the sonic logo, which is on their website, on their call music when you ring through to the branch. We reversed banking, so instead of having consultancy rooms and cashiers, the consultancy rooms are where the cashiers sit, so you have a very personal space. We discovered after this several things. Firstly, the bank staff loved the sonic logo. They loved their new brand so much. We discovered 90% of them had that sonic logo as their personal ringtone. But not only that, shortly afterwards, after we'd done this work, I was in a meeting with the chief executive and she was really excited. And the research and insight director came running in, really excited. New information, new information. Our customer satisfaction, remember I already said that Colombians are happy people. Customer satisfaction had jumped 20% to 99% customer satisfaction, happy people. New account openings had doubled, branch revenue had doubled, and just as a sort of codicil to this, about 6 months ago, the bank was subject to a takeover bid. Share price doubled. So a really successful product. Super additive, multiple sensory design, just shows what you can do. So I wanted to really finish on that. Thank you very much.